We have one question. I think that we got this first off right after Pam spoke, and it says, how can you limit the number of persons in a residence? I need to rent all 5 bedrooms. I don't think that Pam, and I might be putting words in your mouth, she was simply stating that on Monday evening, there's going to be a presentation to the town council about the ad hoc committee. I'm not sure that was exactly her words.
However, in the ad hoc committee has studied for the past year what's been going on across the country in other communities that have student rental problems. It's almost every community everywhere. Limiting the number of people in a residence has been done all over the country. In fact, they're trying to do it in Providence right now with 3 people. You might want to keep an eye on that. I know we are.
Next question is, person has owned rental property for 15 years. The email address is on file with the town, and they've only received 1 communication. With the contact information updated, would the town consider starting an open communication with the landlords throughout the year?
Well, you know, yeah, obviously the answer is yes. We're trying to encourage more and more communication. Your group is our most recent addition to this community that's helping us reach out. What the Chief Partington talked about with Everbridge and is another way that we, and obviously our police officers and our building officials go out, and that's direct communication. Yes, we would like to have, I've had my IT director at Town Hall trying to set up a website or a means of communication with landlords in this town. I know you have that, Ray. You have that with your people. We're trying to, maybe I can get your emails so that we could have a direct conversation about what's going on that would include all of these people, at least from the town side, sitting at this table. If it would be helpful to you, we'd be glad to work on it.
We had one more directed to Pam. We're going to hold off until we actually speak with Tony because it kind of goes with both departments. For the police department, what can we do about our mailboxes being damaged?
Happens a lot.
Go ahead. There is no simple answer to that. There is only so much we can police. You can't stop stupid, unfortunately. I mean, and there's no way to sugarcoat how to do that. You know, people have built very intricate contraptions around their mailboxes to try to protect them. For some reason, the kids or whoever isn't responsible find it very amusing to ride through a neighborhood with a bat and take out every mailbox going down the street. I know it's exasperating to you, it's aggravating as property owners. Every now and then, we get lucky and we catch them. But, you know, 99% of the time, we get a call from a mailbox that's no longer looks like a mailbox, and it's in the street, it's in the yard, and it's us taking a report. I don't know.
Okay.
That's not an easy solution.
I just wanted transparency. I wanted to be able to say it.
Yeah.
Also, what is the process of enforcement and/or communication in the aftermath of receiving an orange sticker? And I'm thinking there's thinking landlord-wise as well as student-wise, or property manager-wise.
The records clerk, after Paul issues a sticker, the records clerk, Linda, at the police department, she mails out notification to the owner of the home.
Owner of the home and the property manager.
And the property manager that a sticker has been placed on the door.
What does that do?
That's just notifying the homeowner and property manager that that house has been stickered.
Question concerning legal right to evict tenants who do not honor the contracts of the contract terms. And the example is that the contract states clearly, parties are not allowed, you will be evicted if more than 12 people are found at the house and neighbors complain about noise. Can the police evict these violators? I'm going to leave that to you and John.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to punt to John. What we have the right to do is go, and we will tell them to have any non-renters leave, to quiet down for the night, behave. we have absolutely zero right to have any eviction process other than the renters, if they're bad enough to lock them up and put them in a cell, and that's the only way we can evict anyone. So I'm gonna give that one to John.
If the tenants violate a term of the lease, you can begin eviction proceedings. The problem is that would be an eviction for non-compliance with the rental agreement. That requires a 20-day notice. And in the 20-day notice, you have to say, you have 20 days to stop the behavior. So if they have one big party, the police come, you send them the notice and they don't have another party, you can't evict them for that first party. If they have another party within the next 6 months, you could then move forward to evict them. The problem with that is by the time, and that's a non-payment eviction takes 9 days to be heard. A non-compliance eviction, you have to send a 20-day notice, then you have to file a regular court action, which requires a 20-day answer. By the time you're in front of a judge, it's almost going to be the end of the semester anyways. And a lot of the parties happen at the end of the school year, and they're gone before you would even get before a judge.
Is that true for drugs found on the property? So let's say the chief's folks find drugs on the property and you have the lease, the eviction, you would have to start proceedings versus kick them out of the house right away?
That's correct.
If I leave my kayaks and they have an accident, I'm assuming that's the renters, can they sue if they are injured?
There's, I believe,
There's a will, there's a way.
yeah. Can they sue? Unfortunately, everyone can sue. Can they win? It would depend on the circumstances. But I would think your homeowner's insurance would cover such an act.
And that's why you should also get that umbrella coverage if you don't have it. It's extra liability protection above your auto and your homeowner's liability. And it's, like you said, it's definitely worth its weight in gold because it will protect you for up to $1 million. There are other limits as well, up to $10 million. Liberty only offers up to $4 million at first, and then we go into reinsurance, which is a lot more expensive. So, you know, definitely, if you're interested in more, we can talk about that individually. So,
Okay, and what if they bring their own kayaks versus ones she's providing?
if it's their own, if it's the tenant's kayak, they're pretty much on their own. They would have their own medical insurance, hopefully, to pay for any injuries they sustain. If it's something where they slip and fall on your property and they say it's due to your negligence, they can sue you for negligence if they should fall on your property. You know, another good thing, which I was remiss in saying, was you want to also make sure your tenants carry their own renter's insurance. That includes coverage for their own liability if there's something where someone's injured and comes, you know, to a party and they get hurt on the property that they're negligent for. But also as the landlord and the property owner, you can also be held responsible as well.
So that's a third point in that some of the summer renters are doing tricks on the rocks on the property. And if they were to get injured, is it the liability of the homeowner?
If they own the property, yes, they can still come after you.
John, so if you have registered with the town, does it include state registration or do we have to register? And I believe you did address that, but go ahead.
Yeah, my understanding, Tony, maybe you can help me with this. When they register with the town, do they designate an agent for service?
Yes.
So that would comply with the requirements.
Okay, thank you. And can you just, and this will be both of you, I think, too, can you describe the difference between an umbrella insurance policy and putting your home in an LLC?
Well, an LLC is a separate entity. You still need insurance. What it protects is your personal property. So if they were to bring an action against you and they won $1 million, they couldn't go after your own house in order to satisfy that judgment. They'd have to go after whatever property was in the LLC, which would include the rental house. You probably would want to have, if you have a few rental properties, you'd probably want them in an LLC, and you'd also probably want the umbrella policy
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah, so that was this new question. If I have an umbrella policy attached to my homeowners at her primary residence, does that also cover my rental property?
You would have to have it on both. You'd have the underlying liability on the rental property, one of the questions that were also emailed was, if you live out of state and you cannot insure the coastal property on a property policy, they would add the liability to just their umbrella, but that's not the case. You need an underlying liability coverage in order for the umbrella to pick it up. So what you would want to do is endorse your homeowners or your primary home with the rental location, and then also include that on your umbrella.
Okay, thank you. Tony,
Yes.
we have a few for you. How do we stop landlords from converting garages and dining rooms into bedrooms?
Well, we catch a lot of people. Some people do it legally. They'll come in, we need a set of plans, smoke detectors have to be marked, you have to have a door or an egress window in that garage, because number one, we don't count, like if you have a garage, we don't count that as parking, because people throw boats, cars, storage, and they don't use the garage. So number one, that's not counted for parking. But they do it legally, they bring, they get a building permit, then we make them, let's say a house is grandfathered from the 70s, then we make them meet the new parking requirements once they add a bedroom, so that's a good thing. But yeah, people try to do it illegally. We catch them. A lot of times we catch them when a realtor will come to the office and say, well, this house is for sale, how many bedrooms is it? Because they can get in trouble for disclosure issues. And we'll say, well, it was built in 1972, it's got 3 bedrooms. Well, no, it's got 5. Then we send the owner a letter. Please be advised, we need to inspect. If you don't let us enter the premises, we'll get an administrative search warrant from the judge to get into the property. And they usually let us go in and we'll say, well, this is illegal, you need to upgrade this, the parking. We've got a couple we're dealing with right now. But we try to, it's the neighbors usually call. That's how we catch people, because there's only Dave and I, Bob,
Right.
and Dave Green, so we can't cover the whole town. That's how people get caught working without permits, the neighbor calls.
Now, you mentioned when realtors come into the office, that's
Yes.
one way. What about our property managers and real estate offices held to having to come into your office as well to determine if the number of bedrooms they're renting are actually legal?
Well, I can't legally make them do that.
Okay.
We do have a history file on every property. It's dating back to like 1920. But I can't legally, if they want to come in and look at it, fine, but we can't, number of bedrooms, bad thing. Put the town at liability. If there's a fire or something like that, then there's, that you said that was a bedroom, this is grandfathered, this isn't grandfathered.
Okay.
It's a tough situation.
So one of the other questions was, does the town have survey data on the houses? So you just answered that question, that you do
Yes.
have a history. Can you explain how the town determines whether a deck, a shed, a driveway, etc., can be built or erected?
Well, the problem is, in Eastwood Look, you're in a high water table. Under our zoning ordinance, if you're in a high water table, we take the paved surfaces into effect, into lot coverage. Well, it's tough to control. You don't need a permit for a driveway, so they can do it on a weekend. Then they're over on their lot coverage. As far as sheds, we catch people all the time.
Yeah.
You need a permit for a shed.
With regards to driveways, they need permits for those as well?
You need a road cut from DPW,
Okay.
a road cut permit. And I just want to bring this up, because we've had a problem down on Green Lane. I'm not going to mention any names, but when you put in a driveway, all driveways cross the town right of way. They go right to the house. We had a situation where they put a driveway this way, and I think I did that too. I made you
Yeah,
take it
you
out.
did. And I wasn't aware of the
Right,
ordinance.
because
So I dug it up and planted grass.
because they had a couple of illegal bedrooms, they're legalizing, they're taking the initiative to get it done. But the cars, they cut out a section and put stone next to the town right of way. But that is the town right of way. So we told them, you're gonna have to fix it. That's something we don't want done. And we're addressing that now with own property. We're gonna have to handle that, but, when somebody comes in, we're just gonna tell them it's prohibited.
Okay. With regards to an egress window, what is the current ordinance size?
Okay, for an egress window under Rhode Island State Building Code, it has to be 4.4 square feet operable, and it can't be more than 44 inches off the floor surface. So God forbid that firefighters have to go in, they can pull a body out of there through that window. But years ago, they didn't have a building code, so, you know, you've got these basement bedrooms that don't have these windows. Are they grandfathered in? Something built prior to 76? Yeah, they probably are. But you want to, you know, if you are a homeowner and you are renting your property and you do have a grandfather situation, I would advise you to try to figure out if it's a lower, like, in Eastwood, look, most of the, they're mostly slab on grade, so we don't have to worry about that. But if you've got something with a full basement, I would advise you just to upgrade it. They make those Bilco bulkheads that you can put in to have an escape hatch out of like a lower level. If there is a fire, then, you know.
If the home transfers ownership, does it have to be brought to code?
No, it does not. Smoke detectors only.
Well, smoke detectors only to the year that the house was built.
Why does the town of Narragansett require a permit to replace a fence that has collapsed or was taken down and no longer in good condition?
Some towns do not require, but years ago, Mark McSally made a ruling that a fence was a structure. And I agree that we should make people get permits for fences, because what happens is, if you don't come in with a survey, if you have a survey, you know where your property line is. So you start throwing fences up, people can take your property by adverse possession. I saw it happen in Petaquamscot Lake Shores. They took 7,500 square feet of a gentleman's property in court through adverse possession because of the fence. Right on Winterberry Road, Dean's familiar with it. If it's a replacement fence, you can come in, just get a permit, put it in the same location.
Thank you. And you addressed the door, you addressed the windows as far as egress standards. Is there a door measurement?
No, I mean, if you have a door, it's not a measurement, just use a regular metal door, an exterior door, go good.
And they can find all these ordinances and measures on your website, on the building
You're not
inspector?
gonna find them on a website, but if you go to Rhode Island State Building Code, IRC 2013, 1 and 2 family dwellings, you can look under windows, egress windows, punch it in, and it'll all come up. Or you can stop at the office and we give you a copy of the ordinance.
Cindy will love you for that one. What is the process for addressing rentals that are not in compliance with codes and proper permitting? And what can you or we do?
Okay, basically, if we get if a realtor comes in, like I stated before, and there's a 3-bedroom, it goes to a 5, what we do is, if it's all covered up, we make them get a licensed electrician to certify that the electrical, make them pull a permit, that the electrical and the smoke detectors are hardwired. We get letters on that. They have to put their license on the line. We make them with their license number. Plumbing, same deal. Mechanical, same deal. So they have to basically certify that this work was done in accordance, you know, it's in a good, safe working order, the electrical outlets, smoke detectors, etc.
So for Jennifer, can we purchase a liability insurance policy just for summer rental only, for July and August?
No, not typically. It would be a full 12-month policy. Most insurers, I can only speak to Liberty, we're a direct writer. We only do full-time 12-month rentals. So therefore, our umbrella policy will cover, you know, your auto home rental property for the year. I don't know any independent agents write, you know, a 6-month short-term rental season. They may, and if you're interested, I can get you something that might be able to answer that for you.
Okay, John, to protect my personal assets, am I protected if the rental is held in a trust? If yes, which is a better option, a trust or an LLC?
Well, a trust protects you individually, but normally your estate planner will have put all your property into the trust. So if something happens, they're gonna bring an action against you as trustee of the trust, and all your property's in there, then you're gonna be liable for everything you own. So you'd be better off in that case having an LLC.
Joe. So noise complaints are the largest problem in our neighborhood. Does URI consider the excess noise as a complaint that would cause a student to be called in? If not, would URI consider adding the complaint as a call for action? Maybe 3 noise complaints and then there's action.
Any report we receive, we call the students in. On occasion, if it's the student's first offense and it's the first noise complaint, they maybe just sent a warning letter for us, but typically any report we receive, they get called in, and then at the very least, a conversation happens between myself and that student. And each student is dealt with individually because we look at if they have prior conduct history, we factor that in to any sanctioning if they're found responsible for violating community standards. But if we have a student who had noise violations while they were on campus, and they had a noise violation off campus, we'll say, what's going on? And then we start talking about behavior and explaining what could happen if that behavior were to continue, especially if they receive the orange sticker or if they receive a social notice violation. Then the grounds kind of change for them. We had a group that received a second violation. I think it was Ann Galvin, is that right? Ann O'Brien. And they had to move forward with evicting students. They went through their eviction process. We went through our student conduct process with each of those individual students. One thing I forgot to mention, on occasion, if you are aware that a gathering was kind of group related, meaning a student organization, so if you receive fine payments from a student organization check, please let us know, because those situations will be handled differently, because on occasion some student organizations have an organizationally related event, and if they pay their fines, then the group can be held accountable in addition to the individualized students.
Thank you. The process with students that you have in place now, when did it start and what was the process previous to this? And how has it improved student relations, or hasn't it?
I can't speak to the process before, but I know the student conduct process has been around for years. As far as related to off-campus behavior, since I've been on staff, every report that comes in, we take care of it. We meet with all of those students, and it takes a lot of time. But a lot of times, the example I can give you is of the violation that we had last year, total off-campus, on-campus, we had about 700 first offense violations. Of those 700, about 100 had their second violations. And then when you get to the third violation, it goes down into the low double digits. So I think the process has been around for quite some time, and I think the communication with the town, I would say, from what I've seen, has probably been, the improvement of the communication is probably what has led to us being able to hold students accountable from our end. We see a lot of reports, and as property owners and landlords, you can also send reports to us. We may be limited as to what we can do. We had a landlord call about evicting a student. We can't evict students. But if there's a legitimate complaint, we can certainly try to intervene, but we are limited from that end, especially when it involves the private residents.
And this question, you might actually be able to have to pertain some more statistics. The particular comment was 3rd and 4th year students are good to rent out in the community, but why can't you keep 1st and 2nd year students on campus?
Off campus or on campus?
1st and 2nd year students on, 3rd and 4th allowed off.
Well, we do not require 1st and 2nd year students to remain on campus, and I can't speak to when that changed. But what I can say that is our Housing Residential Life Office has actually seen an increase in second year students wanting to stay on campus, and as a result, they've had to turn a lot of their double occupancy rooms into triples. So we are seeing students wanting to remain on campus longer, and I think a lot of that has to do with the new residence halls that are being built, the different types of suite type living that has been developed on campus. So I think that it's improving in terms of keeping students on campus, but they have the right to move off campus whenever they choose.
This question is going back, it was addressed to Pam, but I think, Tony, it relates to you as well, with regards to why am I being taxed for the $85 for renting only summers versus they've only rented for summers for 17 years and not to students, and had no police.
Well, the
So that-
rental registration doesn't just apply to students, it applies to all rentals in town. And whether you rent in the summer, year-round, it's all the same fee. And that $85 per unit pays for the rental registration clerk, a police officer, the 2 community housing officers, all our postage, mailing, etc.
And the money has to stay for that use.
And also, I'll add to that a little bit, that we issue orange stickers in the summer also. We've had properties during the summer that have been every week a new group that is a nuisance. And by the time one group gets quieted down or out of money and leave, the next group comes in and they've been the same effect. So we have stickered houses in the summer period. And we do the same visits.
Tony, can homeowners request a voluntary inspection by your department to determine the existence of code violations without incurring fines for the violations discovered, which they can then correct? And if so, how much time would they normally have to make such corrections?
Well, I mean, we're not gonna go through every dwelling in the town of Narragansett. If someone says, oh, I want you to check my house out, make sure it meets code, we're not gonna do that. That's not what we're there for. We're there for, if somebody turns himself in and said, well, I have an illegal bedroom, then we'll say submit a set of plans and we will address it at that time. But I don't have the manpower. I mean, they've talked about, oh, you need to inspect every single house. We don't have that kind of manpower. I'd have to hire 2 more staff people or 3 more staff people. And some houses have grandfather rights. And if I walk in there and I say, that's a bedroom, you're gonna put an egress window in that room or you're going to court, because I'm not taking that liability. I don't know when that house was built. And they say, oh, we need to know the number of bedrooms, the number of this and that. You're putting the town at liability. They're the first person anybody ever sues is the town, because they have the deepest pockets. And then they drop the suit against the town when you can't double dip. So.
I'd like to say something to that. I think it's important for everybody to know this. Hold on. Oh, I don't hear, my voice is not strong enough. We have a police department that has 40 members, uniform members. I recently had someone come in and give me a newspaper article that had been in the Providence Journal that listed all of the population of every town in Rhode Island and the police officers, and we're very high at 40. We probably, and Dean Hoxie, the chief, has said it many times, we're high by about 10 officers because of the URI student rental situation in this town. So that's about approximately $1 million a year, because each employees cost money, and each police officer, after they've gone through probation, maybe with benefits, they're probably making $58,000, $60,000, but then with the benefits, it goes up in the 70s. And it's about $100,000 with everything for each police officer. That's $1 million extra that the town of Narragansett pays each year for police. We're a town of about 16,000, almost 17,000 year-rounders. So when Tony's talking about, understand that in this day and age, most towns and cities around us are trying to eliminate employees, not add them. We know that we could do a lot in Tony's office if we had more people. People cost a lot of money, and that's what the towns and cities in every state, in every part of the nation are trying to do now. is to eliminate those employee costs and yet still protect the quality of life in the town where you live, which means providing police and fire and schools. Those are very expensive propositions, all three of them. Add DPW in there with their big trucks and keeping the roads clean and drivable and safe in this weather climate. We've got a huge expense. Our budget each year approximates about $50 million. That's $50 million, most of it is raised, since we don't have a lot of commercial in this town, most of it is raised through taxpayer money. So when we're talking about how do we solve these situations without adding more burden to the taxpayer, that's the problem we're fighting. That's what every one of us is fighting, and we're getting ready to do a new budget right now for 16-17, and we're looking very carefully at the costs, and we'd like to do a lot more, but we're very conscious of the taxpayer burden.
And Narragansett is very unique to a lot of communities in Rhode Island because of the amount of beaches we have, Block Island Ferry, so we have the summer tourist industry. You know, we are on a roller coaster in Narragansett for activity. Towns like Middletown, Portsmouth, if I talk to them, they're like this all through the year. They're pretty steady pace throughout the year between their year-round residents, their commuting population, and their summer population. Narragansett goes from about the third week of June until almost the end of August, where, and you notice this summer, the people never went away, which is great for the businesses, but they never went away. And then we have about a 2-week break until URI returns. And then it takes September, October into November to try to quiet that down to a point. In December, after the holidays, we have a bit of a lull again. And as soon as the weather improves, we go back up. URI graduates, we go back down. So it's very difficult to manage or try to make sure we have the minimal amount of people that we can do the maximum amount of job with. And I think right now we're at a very good place to, on a year-round basis, to be able to tackle what we're doing.
Thank you. Tony, we had a question from one of our members who couldn't be here today, and she said she has 3 student tenants but only 2 on-site parking spaces. She has a vacant lot next door where the owner allows her 3rd tenant to park. Is she out of compliance with town regulations?
Well, is it a vacant lot? Does it have a structure on it?
Vacant lot.
It's a vacant lot. You cannot have an accessory use on a vacant lot in Narragansett. It's like if someone comes in and says, I want to put a shed on my vacant lot, I want to put a garage on my vacant lot, you need a special use permit. You cannot have an accessory use without a principal use, so it is illegal.
Thank you. We'll get that back to her. With regards to special use permits, John, did you want to address that with regards to renting property in Narragansett, or Tony?
Special.
Well, there were a couple of questions that were out there that.
Is this the rooming house, boarding house thing?
Yeah.
Number one, rental houses are not boarding or rooming houses. A rooming house is transient, less than 30 days. They're not dormitories. They're not boarding houses. That's just a way for some people to try to get, some people just want to get all the renters out of town totally. And I deal with this every day, 2 or 3 people that like harass me like 24/7. I do, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I deal with this every day, and they don't listen. Can't you enforce the 3 unrelated? No, it's not on the books. Oh yeah, it's still on the books. No, it's not on the books, and we're not enforcing it. This is a dormitory. No, it's not a dormitory. This is a room, you know. I go through this every day, and I tell them the same answer, and they just keep coming at me. And I just want to say one thing. 90% of these students are good kids. We go up, you know, they're kids. And we say, you need to clean this up. Okay, sir, I'm coming back in an hour, you're getting a ticket. They clean it up. You're never going to have 100% compliance, ever. You're always going to have that 10% in anything.
That goes for annual renters as well as permanent residents as well.
Rents, you know, the program is not just the URI students, anyone who rents. You're never going to get 100% compliance. That's just my opinion.
We have one comment to Pam with regards to the ad hoc committee. Please keep in mind that the discussions around minimum tenants advances that most communities around the country do not have a proactive landlord association.
What was the question?
It was actually a statement.
No, and we now have a new proactive tenants association in Narragansett, which I think can only benefit the community. It was the empty seat at the table. You have a voice, you are now organized, keep it strong, because you need that. As Tony said, it's a daily struggle. I know he's not exaggerating, because it comes through my office too. It's a daily struggle to answer, and the chief will tell you. It's a daily struggle to answer all these questions and to keep what we are after is just respect for the quality of life in any neighborhood in Narragansett. People who have their homes and live in these areas need to be able to have a certain quality of life. So we try to balance that. We're trying really hard. You are a big part of it. You as landlords can solve a lot of the problems with who you rent to and how much you pay attention. And we appreciate that.